where I want to start, I absolutely enjoy the movie on so many levels. First of which I need to share is that my day job is actually an attorney. So watching this was just, I'm always intrigued to see a legal drama play out, but knowing that it's based on real transcripts and immigration not being an area of practice for me just absolutely is fascinating through and through. So Arian, I guess for you, what led to the interest in Elizabeth's story originally?
I think, the reality was it was a response to kind of what was happening in the immigration world, in immigration in the United States. I think it was on the heels of seeing images of children being caged at borders that really kind of brought something out in me. I'm an immigrant from Iran, and I have so much, I have so much respect for a country that brings in immigrants. And so to watch that on the news really was breaking me. And for some odd reason, I really thought that by reading some deportation cases, I would figure something out, I guess. And that, it wasn't, I want to be honest, it wasn't like super planned out, but the idea of like reading deportation cases was very fascinating to me. And within 3 weeks, I was speaking with Richard Haynes on this case. And what drew me to her case specifically, again, as an immigrant, was really two really early on pieces that are not early on in the script, in the movie version and in the play version. But it's when she says, when someone was like, "Would you like to have a tissue?" And then the next line being something like, "No, she's going to be fine. It's going to be okay. Just give her a second." And as an immigrant whose parents, bless them, learned English in their 40s, seen that play out in such deep, huge ways. And the moment I read that, I felt like, oh my God, she's having like a breakdown right now, like a big, sobby breakdown. And that just really drew me in. And that whole conversation about, do you speak Tagalog? No, I don't speak Tagalog. It's like a ba, 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 ba. And they're just like right in front of her. And you see, Lee just said this in one of the early interviews, so I'm just going to say it now, but it's so true. It's like, you kind of see that they're not really saying, don't do this, but they're kind of like, we can do this, but it might not be it might be too difficult. You know what I mean? So it's fascinating. So all that is what kind of drew me to this story, and all of the, without giving anything away, all of the twists and turns of it.
And I'm glad that you brought that up about the interpreter, because that honestly is a very infuriating back and forth that occurs for quite a while, where it's, trying to identify the dialect, but ultimately the judge ignoring that the dialect is even important. But really, when you're in that position and, you're feeling as though you're already cornered in the type of, proceeding that you're in, being asked multiple times, are you sure? Do you really need one? Do you not need one? Just totally changes that power dynamic. And that right off the bat, that frustrated me. And I knew I was going to be hooked on this entire film.
Well, also, just speaking as an immigrant, my mom says this to me. She says sometimes when she's in a moment of confrontation where she's like, I don't know how to deal with this, she says to me, all of a sudden, all English words disappear.
Sure.
And now all of a sudden you have you're like a person that's like vibrating in all these ways, and played amazingly in the movie by Kristin Villanueva. I mean, she really encapsulates what I think that moment actually looks like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Lee, you're no stranger to the project, having directed the stage adaptation before. What made The Courtroom the right fit for your first feature film?
I mean, in a lot of ways, I think it was like that kind of organic evolution of that project. I think because that story in particular has so much currency and so much relevance right now to be told to a wider group of people. So the idea of it being able to kind of get out of the limitations of the four walls of the theater and reach more people was particularly exciting. And, you know, Arian is like such an incredible film director and writer and actor and has so much experience. It was also, I think, a really amazing fortuitous thing for me that I got to direct my first feature with Arian as a collaborator, because I learned so much from Arian. I learned so much from working with the director of photography, from the editor. Like I got to have this like really remarkable team of collaborators that all kind of gravitated towards this project. And so I think it was a really lucky experience. And I'm so grateful that this was my opportunity to direct my first film.
That's excellent. And it's such an impactful film. I mean, I can't imagine a better first film to start with than one that kind of reverberates through what's happening throughout the country right now. And this starting 10 years ago, right, was the first case, the first proceeding, 2012, if I'm right.
Earlier. The first one was 2000. Lee would know this better than me. 7, I want to say.
Okay, that's right. Which is still just wild to me that we're, 15 years down the road and we're still dealing with pretty much the same things, because the laws, while they've changed in certain ways, are still very binding, and the interpretation of them by certain judges can be just as linear and not giving to the individual. But I'm going to end up getting on a soapbox here. But one of the things that works so well for this film is the simplicity of the setting. And, it aids in forcing the focus of the viewers and allowing the powerful dialogue to really shine through and make that impact, especially given that it's, actual dialogue from the actual transcripts. Were there any particular challenges in first adapting the story into a screenplay from the stage, Arian, but then second, directing the film versus the stage production?
I'll just go mine quickly. I mean, really, from the adaptation to the film, there wasn't that many changes, to be real. We added some things that we couldn't do in the theatrical version because we were actually performing them in Courtroom, so we couldn't like set off a fire alarm. You know what I mean? And so bringing those elements, but overall, the screenplay from the play to the dialogue was almost exactly all the same, if not all the same. I'll have Lee speak to the gloriousness of the visuals.
Well, I think the fun of adapting it from the stage to the film was that we kind of had this like interesting inversion where, we did the play in these real courtrooms in New York City. So ironically, whereas like a lot of times you'd go into like film in a real courtroom to be on location, and you have all the like incredible grandeur and like ornate details of a real courtroom. We actually, in doing the film, really wanted to capture what immigration court was like and what those rooms feel like. And we were never able to do a site-specific version of the play in one of those courtrooms because they're so busy, first and foremost, but also they're so small. But Arian and I, early in the process of making the theater piece, we actually went down and sat and watched some immigration proceedings. And we were both very, very deeply impacted by watching those proceedings, but also watching them in the small rooms with these drop ceilings that feel very makeshift, that feel a little bit more like conference rooms or kind of offices than what we think of as courtrooms. So with the set design, we wanted to do a couple of things. We wanted to capture what that immigration court felt like and kind of subvert our expectations of what a courtroom drama looks like. And second, we decided to build only these partial sets because wanted to keep reminding the viewer, disrupting kind of like their normal way of watching courtroom drama, to say like, this is actually not a scripted drama that you're supposed to kind of like lose yourself in. You want to kind of keep just subtly reminding people that it's transcripts and has this little bit of a documentary feel. So it's the sets create this sense of kind of we're reenacting something from real life, as opposed to trying to like pretend that we're just getting swept away into the story. So the translation of those conventions into the film was a really cool puzzle, and it was really hard. Actually, it took a lot of figuring out like what was the right approach to doing the film.
There's also something to be said for the darkness around the set, and it kind of just made me feel like this is in the moment. this is all that matters at this point, for this individual, that this is their life. This is what's going to determine what's next. So that was really impactful, and it's great to see the use of such, the outside of the dialogue, the sets and everything else, just driving the emotional impact of the story, because it is a very emotional story. And by the end of it, when Linda Powell is, finishing up in the final case, and I'm not going to get to the ending or reveal anything there, but there are some really powerful moments that just kind of have you cheering for the way in which points are delivered. And so I want to ask you about Linda's performance, because it is a captivating performance. And I was struck by the fact, and a little taken aback by the fact, that she's playing a real life male attorney in Richard Haynes. And the same is true for especially the first judge, that's played by Marcia Stephanie Blake. What was the reasoning behind that? And what was the thought process there, Arian?
It was really a collaboration with Lee and I, to be honest with you. And what we decided was, and what I think it does in the show is, in the movie, is that it puts the focus back on these words. Yeah. At the end of the day, when you're watching it, you have to keep being reminded that our monies are being spent for this. Our immigration system is dealing with these types of cases, and we need to fix this quickly. And so, in a way, by having Marcia Stephanie's character, who is a man, talk to Linda Powell's character, who's played by a man, and say, "Sir," you basically bring back this idea that these are just words. And to be real, we also are theater makers, Lee and I. We want this to be performed everywhere. And we don't want any barrier for you to, and in the theater, there's a different dynamic when you do something like that. By opening it up like that, you basically give an opportunity for anyone to play any character. And I think that's really kind of important as well. And I think Linda is just like an amazing actor, like period, the end. Like, we were saying this earlier, but these actors are all just so perfect, aren't they? I mean, they're just so, I don't want to speak too much. Lee, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just like Arian said, part of it was about wanting to create these subtle moments where the audience be reminded, like, not the words have not been changed. And then second, it was really difficult to cast that role of Richard Haynes. Like,
it's impossible.
Who, as an actor, could really dig into understanding the legal stuff? Because if you look at like the big, amazing courtroom dramas, I totally love them. 12 Angry Men, The Verdict, To Kill a Mockingbird, like these kind of classic dramas, that they don't necessarily always go into like these really complicated technical legal things. And we were really scared when we were first doing the early performances, that the audience would feel totally lost by the legal argument in the case.
Yeah.
And actually, I think it's a testament to Richard Haynes in real life, and it's a testament to Linda Powell and her like incredible power as an actor, that actually audiences follow that very complicated legal question really well. And that legal question gets at this really interesting thing, which is that in immigration court, you're actually undergoing an administrative procedure. So there isn't a mechanism in immigration court to determine whether or not you have a defense like you would in criminal court. So what all that immigration court can do is decide, should we halt your paperwork process because of a paperwork violation? And Richard Haynes is essentially pushing against this limit in immigration law to say, well, yes, this person did make a mistake, but they still should have access to a defense. And so that legal question, we didn't want to simplify it or reduce it in any way. And so in order to do that, that's all to come back to answer your question. In order to do that, you have to have an actor who can like engage with the material. And so, I thought of Linda. I just thought like, wow, I think she can do that.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to throw one more thing, just
Sure.
propping up Linda as well, is that many actors would have made this role also overly dramatic because of how we have seen this in the sphere. But the reality is, it's an intellectual, actor that needs to do an intellectual argument that really fills up the soul, because that Richard Haynes, Linda Powell moment at the end of that first trial, where the case is like, we shouldn't be doing this. You know what I mean? It just resonates on so many levels. And Linda just really captured what it must have felt like to be in that room.
Absolutely. And the emotion that she carries, not only in that first trial, but even down the road at the appellate trial, and seeing her nervousness, she's stuttering, she's tripping over words a little bit. And that was just so genuine and authentic into how those interactions really are when a judge is interrupting you every 5 seconds, asking you a question. I thought that back and forth was just so brilliant. And even the actors that played the judges were just incredible in this sense. It really is such a great snapshot, and I'm glad, Arian, that this was brought to light, and Lee, that you have transformed it into this movie as well, because it is something that I think people need to see. And you're right, Lee, there are crazy topics. Estoppel is a very confusing topic, but then also when you're throwing it into administrative proceedings versus criminal and defense and all of that, that's one thing that I definitely took from this. It's broken down so well, and I guess that's a testament to Richard Haynes. But then also the way that it was performed in this. I can't thank you both enough for the film, because it really is, I think, one of the more impactful that I've seen in recent memory.
Wow, thanks, Joe.
Absolutely. I want to ask, though, at the end of the day, what do you hope that viewers take from the film?
I hope they realized some more of what it must be to be an immigrant in this country. I hope that people realize that immigration court doesn't fucking work. It just doesn't work. It needs an overhaul. And there must be a better system than this. I hope, I hope that people from both sides of the spectrum or whatever their believings can look at this and see how, like, a mind like Richard Haynes can, like, change, literally the world. Those are some of the things that I hope people see it. I don't know. Lee, I'm speaking too much.
Yeah, I'm seconding everything that Arian said. I just really hope, a lot of times my hope with this story is that someone, like, 5 years after they've seen it, would just, like, these characters would, like, pop up in their minds, and they'd think, like, oh, I remember what Elizabeth Keathley went through. So it becomes like a story that's, like, you carry with you, and it pops up for you in moments when you read a newspaper article about an immigrant, or it pops up when someone happens to mention, something about immigration that comes up in, like, a dinner party conversation, that these people, like, really stick with you.
Sure.
And, this is a real story about an immigration lawyer as the hero. So I hope that immigration lawyers watch it and feel, like, celebrated and honored, and that people would kind of see the very quiet, behind the doors, like, heroism and really hard work that is happening on the part of immigration lawyers. It's pretty incredible.
Absolutely. Unsung heroes for the work that they do.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I thank you both for taking the time today. I hope you have, are you heading to Tribeca?
Yeah, we're going to be in and around the festival the next week or so.
Yeah, in and around, exactly. I'm headed. The moment you said that, I was like, am I supposed to go there too?
Yeah, am I there now?
We're New Yorkers.
Yeah, we're New Yorkers. We're New Yorkers.
There you go. So you're not too far. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, enjoy it. I'll be up there next week, so maybe I'll run into you guys. But enjoy the festival, and thanks again for such a great film. I wish you all the most success.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Take care.